They say every war needs an enemy, a plan, and a reason. But in 1932, one nation went to war against something no army had ever faced before. Not soldiers, not rebels, not invaders. Birds. Thousands of them. And somehow, the birds won. This is the darkly hilarious, unbelievably true story of the Emu War, when a government turned machine guns on animals and still lost. In the early 20th century, Australia was still recovering from World War I. Thousands of veterans returned home, given land in Western Australia, and told to start new lives as farmers. The soil was tough, the conditions were brutal, and hope was thin. But they planted anyway. Wheat fields stretched across the land like promises. And then the emus came. Every year, as the seasons changed, thousands of emus migrated through the countryside. Tall, fast, curious, and completely unstoppable. They trampled crops, broke fences, and devoured harvests that families were depending on to survive. To the farmers, it didn't feel like migration. It felt like invasion. They tried chasing the birds away. They tried shooting them. They tried complaining. And finally, the farmers asked their government for military help. And unbelievably, the government said yes. Australia did not debate. Australia did not hesitate. Australia deployed the army with machine guns on birds. The commander put in charge was Major Meredith, a decorated war veteran. A man trained to fight humans in the most brutal war in history was now tasked with stopping birds with feathers and tiny brains. Or so they thought. The first ambush was set near a water source where emus gathered in large numbers. Soldiers waited. Tension built. When hundreds of emus appeared, the guns opened fire, and immediately everything went wrong. The emus did not panic. They scattered. They ran in zigzags. They sprinted faster than the soldiers could track. The guns jammed. Bullets tore through dust, not birds. And after all that noise, smoke, and effort, they had killed maybe a few dozen out of thousands. The birds adapted fast. They traveled in smaller groups. They changed routes. They became tactical. The soldiers tried again, this time mounting a machine gun to the back of a truck to chase them down. But the landscape was too rough. The vehicle bounced. The gunner couldn't aim. And the emus? They outran the truck. A 6-foot-tall bird was humiliating modern warfare. Newspapers began mocking the operation. Cartoons were drawn. Jokes spread. Australia had officially entered a war and was losing to animals with no strategy and no fear. Major Meredith later admitted that the emus were smarter than expected. He even compared them to trained soldiers, moving in formation, protecting their own by placing stronger birds at the front and letting the weak retreat. The birds weren't fighting. They were surviving. And it was working. 2 months into the operation, the results were undeniable. Thousands of bullets fired, weapons deployed, manpower invested, and the emu population basically untouched. The military withdrew. The war was over. The birds were still standing. The government would eventually change tactics. Instead of bullets, they offered bounties. But as for the war, history had already decided the winner. Not the people, not the weapons, the birds. To this day, the Emu War remains one of the strangest conflicts ever recorded. Not because of the violence, but because of how powerless technology looked when nature decided not to cooperate. It's funny on the surface, but underneath, it's a reminder that power doesn't always come from size or weapons or governments. Sometimes it comes from simply refusing to fall. The Great Emu War proved something no general ever wanted to learn. You can declare war on anything, but that doesn't mean you'll win. If you enjoyed this story, you're in the right place. Subscribe for more weird, shocking, and true stories where history breaks reality, and reality always gets the last laugh.